Today we'll be doing our presentation on beam restricting devices by Jane Peterson and Kylie Hunsaker.
Beam restricting devices are needed to change the field size of the X-ray beam, because as the field size increases, so does the scatter radiation, which is what we want to avoid when taking X-rays.
We can limit X-ray beam size by using 3 different beam restricting devices. These include aperture diaphragms, cones or cylinders, and variable aperture collimators.
Aperture diaphragm is the simplest of the beam restricting devices. It is the most simple because it has a fixed lead opening, which leads to a fixed image receptor size. Since the lead aperture is fixed, this means the source to image receptor distance as well as the source to diaphragm distance will both remain constant. The lead aperture diaphragm is attached to the X-ray tube head and is designed to cover just less than the size of the image receptor used. So here is a drawing of an aperture diaphragm. As you can see, the X-ray tube is right above where the aperture diaphragm sits, and you can see that only the beams that go through the aperture are able to hit the image receptor. The beams that don't go through are absorbed by the lead of the lead aperture diaphragm.
The next type of beam restricting device is composed of cones and cylinders, which is a modification from the aperture diaphragm. These allow for imaging areas of the body that have smaller field size, such as the skull or teeth. Most commonly, we see this type of beam restricting device when getting x-rays while at the dentist, because it is able to produce a circular image with a decreased field size. These cones and cylinders are comprised of lead and are attached to the collimator. One issue with these is that the fact that they are difficult to have a good alignment of the object being x-rayed. Here you can see, using the cones and cylinders, that the x-ray field size will be reduced because the x-ray can only go through the cylinder or the cone, which is why we would use this for teeth or for the skull, because it is such a small, precise area, and will also decrease the scatter radiation in the area around it.
The third type of beam restricting device is the variable aperture collimator. It is the most common of the beam restricting devices. It is a light localizing aperture that is comprised of many different components. These components include first stage entrance shutter, second stage shutter, bulb, mirror, and positive beam limitation, also known as PBL. We'll be talking about these different components next.
The first component is the first stage entrance shutter. This is where the diaphragm of this collimator is used to control off-focus radiation. This is a positive benefit because it will make for a clearer X-ray due to the decrease in scatter radiation. The fact that the diaphragm decreases scatter radiation is a major bonus when it comes to radiation doses, as it minimizes the dose that a patient receives. The second component is the second stage shutters, which is where, like the other 2 beam restricting devices, this collimator is also made out of lead and are at least 3 millimeters thick. The improvement seen when using a collimator is that it allows for variable X-ray field size because of the second stage shutter. The other components of the variable aperture collimator include a bulb, mirror, and positive beam limitation. The mirror allows for light to be reflected off of it to project coverage of the X-ray beam. The PBL automatically collimates the beam to the size of the cassette. However, it is possible to override the PBL by reducing the beam to a field smaller than cassette size. In conclusion, beam restricting devices are beneficial because they decrease scatter radiation, they change the field size, and are necessary in the X-ray technician world.